to got it, yeah. She can't go from where she is now, recovering with her mental health, and to mainstream college. I mean, it's just, she can't. It's not, anyway. It's kicked it down the road only for a little bit. There's another panel on the 25th. So she's going back to them with the EOTAS again to say, look, this is what the two colleges have said. Then let's see. So
have they both formally stated that they can't meet need then?
Yeah, they've obviously emailed to the coordinator exactly that. Yes.
Right, okay. And have you seen those responses?
Yes, she's she's forwarded to me their comments. Okay. She's emailed me and sort of like copied me into what they've said.
Okay. And have they said, like, I just want to be absolutely clear that they're meeting the terms by which they can say they can't meet need. So have they said, like, I'll find it for you, but there are 3 things basically. Would not be appropriate for the special educational needs of the child or young person, would not be appropriate for the rest of the cohort, or would not be efficient use of resources. So I'm guessing they're saying it would not be appropriate for the special educational needs of the child or young person. Is that what they're saying?
Yes, I would say so, because I mean, the sixth form college have said we do not accept anyone without GCSEs.
Right. Okay.
But she does not have the entry requirements, and there's no flexibility on that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which I expected.
Yeah.
And she doesn't. That's not what we want anyway.
Yeah.
We've got Wirral Met College, so it's the general college, who are exceptionally good at learning support. Their statement back is that they would be worried that the size of their college would not be suitable for Emma, and so size and busyness of college would not be suitable for Emma's current mental health situation. I think they said, I haven't got it in front of me. Okay. But I suppose that is her special educational need, isn't it? She's autistic. She's also got mental health problems. So that is her need, and they are not suitable for that need at the moment, because her EHCP in its in the outcomes and says it needs to be a small group setting.
Got you.
Like, ideally,
does it specify how small?
Yeah, it says ideally about 4 to 5 pupils.
Okay. Right.
So small groups, and starting with meeting Emma in her home and step by step leading her back into education, things like that, it says. So it's not, I mean, I did talk to her on holiday and said, look, could you go to the open evening? And she said, I can't even walk to the end of our road on my own. I can't go to, it's just not viable right now.
Time isn't right for her at all.
No, timing's terrible. And also, and another thing I pointed out was, they're exceptionally good at transition planning, this college. They told me how many times over the summer they would have her in preparation for in August. And well, she'd miss all that if they tried to stuff her in there now, and it's not going to happen. So she needs the transition and planning. And the EHCP pretty much says that it's got to be step by step, slowly, when she's ready.
Yeah. I wonder, have you discussed with the caseworker having an outcome written in that she could potentially look at that for September 2024? That could be one of the outcomes you're working towards?
We haven't written it in as an outcome. We have kind of said that, in fact, I think I might have even said it in the EOTAS proposal, that this is something we're asking for 12 months, and we will review it, because she's of the age, she's 16, she's post school, that in January, start of 2024, we need to do the review, because they have to have it by the end of March, don't they? And then, so in January, we are totally ready to review this again. She will have, she hopefully will have by then, have had her OT sensory assessment, which we are funding ourselves. It's booked. Well, it's not booked. She's on the waiting list with Where We're Going, and they reckon it was going to be about 2 to 3 months from August. So we're looking at probably November-ish to get a report, which I'm hoping will time well and kind of filter into the review. because she does have a lot of sensory issues that we don't fully understand, and that again would be a burnout problem for going into mainstream college.
One of the things I might be tempted to do, I'm putting it in the chat for you, and I'm going to bring it up on a screen for you as well, just so that you've got it in your recording as much as anything else.
Okay, great.
So this is the legal definition that is required when a setting states that it can't meet need.
Right.
So because my extra caution is college saying we are concerned that is not them saying we cannot meet need.
Right.
And I would be minded to go back to the college and speak to the Senko and ask them to state very clearly in an email that they are stating they cannot meet need because the setting isn't suitable for the age, ability, aptitude, or special education needs of the child or young person.
Okay, so basically what you've just forwarded to me there.
Because I have seen it previously. I don't want to frighten you, but I just want to get ahead of it, and it's good, right?
Yeah, this is the question really. So what could happen next Monday? What other shenanigans will they come back with?
I've seen it when LAs have gone, well, they haven't actually followed procedure, and they haven't actually said they can't meet need. They've just said they're concerned about it, so we're naming them as a setting.
Yeah.
So I would get ahead of that and go to the Senko and ask them to state very clearly and categorically that this is why they can't meet need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, I'll get rid of that now. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's going to be Monday when it goes to panel.
Yeah.
So that does give you time to ask the Senko to do that.
Yeah, no, I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. And then what has the caseworker said to you about on the back of that panel decision?
Well, in our first conversation, she said to me, it sounds like Emma needs mental health recovery, English and maths is the ideal for this, but mental health recovery on its own if necessary.
Yeah.
And the minimum of English and maths if she can, or at least starting to think about it. She got almost all the way to the end of year 10, and she is very academic. So I don't think doing English and maths is going to be, when she's well, is going to be too difficult. And she could potentially do it at the college if that's the way she goes. And in a sort of, when they do their resits at the college, she should probably take it there. We've got in our request, and the local authority have used these people before. I got their details from the caseworker, a once a week place, which is based on anxiety. They have to have a diagnosis of anxiety. It's a very, very calm place. And she could potentially, we're going to go and see it tomorrow morning, fingers crossed, if she can manage it, for a taster. And they start with 2 hours of art, and then there's only about, they can have up to 20, but they've got 5 staff. And then they will maybe do some English or maths, or they'll kind of work out what works for the child. But if they don't want to, if they're not ready for that at all, they'll just do art basically. So I think it would, I mean, it's really difficult to know how to push them. I know you've been through it. I think it's almost harder than the start of burnout, because the start of burnout, simple, you take all the demands away and you don't try and do anything. But this stage is like
coming out of burnout is it is the hard. I agree, it's the hardest stage, because you are anxious about pushing them, they are anxious about being pushed, but you're both also aware that there needs to be some gentle leaning on doors that maybe weren't open before but might be open now. You kind of have to, like, you just need to pour as much kindness on yourself and on the situation as you can, and on the understanding that you'll have to take each day as it comes. I think this is it. It is really hard, and I think you've just got to managing that balance between the anxiety of pushing him back into crisis and encouraging him to do the things he wanted to do, I found really tricky.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the things that was really helpful for me was having another person. So in this case, it was our learning support mentor, but I'm thinking about this day a week that you're thinking about, that was something that they wanted to do, that they could focus on, that was like safe for them to try, with the understanding that if it didn't work, it was okay. And when we had that with Carol, she would come and say, right, we're going to go and do this. And if he said, oh, I can't, she'd be like, come on. And he'd be like, all right then. But if he said, I can't, she went, come on. And he went, no, I can't. She went, okay, cool, we'll do something else.
Yeah.
So, but you'll get that with that level of expertise that you're getting from a specialist provider who are working with highly anxious children.
I think we probably do need to look at something like a mentor as well. We don't have that in the current proposal, but the current proposal is probably not going to potentially last very long because it needs reviewing. It needs reviewing with the OT sensory assessment as well. I'm hoping that will give us even more.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do everything really now, and it is too much for both of us because she will be able to say, I mean, all the bad stuff comes to me. So she's at her absolute worst with me, and that's how it should be. But
it's a huge strain though.
But then pushing her is hard because I'm not the one who she. I don't want her to mask, but I don't want her to give up every time either. And she would with me, I think. Well, no, that's probably not fair. She's amazing, really. We had a CAMS appointment yesterday, and she's come off sertraline, the SSRI.
Yeah.
She had 7 months on it, and it was, looking back, the worst decision because it's had so many side effects, including you're familiar with them, but emotional blunting, where she can't get any joy. So it might take the anxiety down, but it's taking everything else down as well. And
just feeling like you're in a big soft
awful she needs her
nothingness.
She needs her special interests, she needs her passions to see her through this, to see her through life, but to see her through this phase. And we've done that by a private child psychiatrist, which has been the only option. She's been on a waiting list for 2 years for so basically, and I know this is not going to be a surprising story, but CAMS and the Education Authority have basically given her nothing for 2 years. So we're now at the stage where both of them are actually stepping up. We're actually seeing CAMS face to face, and we went yesterday, and she is seeing she's going to have her first CAMS psychiatrist meeting on Friday, which is face to face, whereas the other one was Zoom with this is what the psychiatrist treated. So I was there, and I totally understand. You can't build a relationship with a young person like that. So it's been pretty rubbish for her, and she is at times feeling like, well, it's never going to get better.
And where's this help that I'm supposed to get?
Because she's 16, so 2 years out of 16 have been terrible. And I mean, I'm 52. I've had some rough stuff in life, but in proportionate terms, it's not just, so it feels like we've got everything waiting in the wings for her, but it's not quite there yet. And with the EOTAS, there are things in that. So there's Mind Jam, a therapist. She's accessing both of them now and doing well with both of them. And we're basically kind of asking for double the amount of their time because we can't fund double, but she would benefit from double. And then this once a week, more of a formal, but she hasn't got anything art, so I thought that would be perfect. She's very artistic. And
how much does the package come in at? Sorry to speak over you.
No, it's all right. No, I think it's about 17,000, including travel costs, because I do all the toing and throwing and driving.
And that's for the whole year?
Yeah.
That's not expensive.
It's not. I know our local, we've got they call it West Kirby Residential School. It's not residential anymore, and it's an excellent SEND school, but not for somebody like Emma. It's very much kind of loud, behavioural,
high support
explosions.
needs. Yeah.
Yeah, high support needs. And I know they come in at 17,000 for per child. So we're not really asking for more than someone in that setting would be getting.
No. And actually, comparatively, in terms of the cost of something, an alternative provision would cost that much for a year. Easily. So you're not asking for anything that probably, I mean, even if it's just that kicking it into the long grass thing, but even if she was on roll at a mainstream, the mainstream would have to organise alternative provision and it would be in the same ballpark. So it's not like you're asking for hundreds of thousands of pounds of packages. I've seen EOTAS packages that are 250 grand. So I mean, they were hard won. You won't get that without going to appeal. But but yeah, okay. Sorry,
the two things that aren't considered at the moment in her EHCP are the sensory assessment, which we're paying for and will be there for the next bit. I've also had several really lovely conversations with social workers because I said we want a social care assessment that she hasn't had. And they came straight back with the child in need social workers. And they've been very nice to talk to, actually. And we all came to the set. I don't know how many I've spoken to. They don't know how they do this, but I've had various calls. And we all agree that would be a waste of time because they are not disability social workers. And it would be a waste of their time and a stress for Emma that she doesn't need. And I've been told that she doesn't meet the criteria for a disability social care assessment. But one of them did say to me that she thinks that is because she's basically not known to service. She's not in a special needs school. She hasn't had an EHCP very long. She's basically flown so far under the radar to the age of 15 that everyone thinks she's just this fantastic, compliant, high-achieving grammar school girl, which she was, but it cost her mental health. So she is diagnosed autistic. She is under CAMHS for her mental health. So I don't know where, if it's worth the energy to push that one, or whether we just see what the OT assessment comes in with in terms of, because I think that's the only piece we don't have is, I know you and I spoke about it, is the preparation for adulthood bit. She's definitely, and has had this getting worse and worse, she definitely has agoraphobia. So what happens is we have 3 safe spaces with the house, we have the car, and we now have our boat. We've always had narrowboat holidays, and 3 years ago we bought our own ex-hire narrowboat, thinking she would be able to do a lot more than she's done, unfortunately. But because it's like your own home moving along, she can do that, but she can't moor up and wander off into the town like she used to be able to do with us. And she tried this last 2 weeks. She went for 2 different walks, one completely on her own, spontaneously. She just disappeared. Because I think
God, I would have been beside myself.
Find my iPhone is brilliant. I said, where's she gone? And then another one with us. But the problem she has is that she's just okay for a bit, and then she realized her brain goes, I'm far from my safe place, and the anxiety goes off the scale. And it's not an anxiety that you could just sit on a bench and take some deep
brain on fire.
It's the 2 to 3 hour recovery type anxiety. So she needs to get back to recover. She can't do it on the path. So I'm wondering where that will be talked about with the psychiatrist, because that and her intrusive thoughts are the 2 things that over the last 2 years, no matter what we've done, we have not been able to sort those 2 things. And I don't think, I'm not really keen on medication after the last 7 months experience, but I'm also not keen on not giving her something if it's going to take the anxiety down for her. That's not really something for you to
I mean, I can only speak to that from personal experience. And I will if you want me to.
Please do. I won't take it as advice, don't worry.
Caveat that I'm not a
that's recorded, it's not advice, it's just in my experience.
I have an SSRI. I take citalopram.
Oh, yeah.
And it took me a long time to find the right one.
Mm.
And actually, for a lot of people, citalopram is not a work at all, but for me, it absolutely is.
Mm.
I'm on a pretty low dose, but Theo isn't medicated for his mental health, although his ADHD medication, he's on atomoxetine, does have licensing for reduction in anxiety. So it
Mm.
is about finding the right meds, and like it's something a psychiatrist can advise you on.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've had periods of time when I've been on my SSRI and off my, I had 10 years of not being on SSRIs.
Mm.
And it is about your window of tolerance. So at sometimes I've not needed it at all, but certainly the last 5 years, I
Mm.
would have been absolutely stuffed without it. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's that
She's
delicate
tried.
balance.
She's had 7 months on fluoxetine, which
Yeah,
had
I've never tried fluoxetine.
no side effects, but didn't really touch the intrusive thoughts.
Mhm.
And then a second psychiatrist took over within the private company we were using, just change of staff. And she identified that Emma does have OCD, but it's all thought based. There are no physical
Behaviors,
yes,
actions.
yeah. So you can't. I wouldn't particularly do exposure response anyway. I think it's really a tough one. But you can't even say, "Well, I'll stand with you and you don't wash your hands more than 3 times today, and then 2 times tomorrow," and that's
You can't stop someone thinking
all
something.
in her head. So I
Mm.
can't, and she can't talk about it because by talking about it, it makes it worse. So it's just like you can't really CBT that one away.
No, no.
Um, so the fluoxetine swapped her to sertraline in January, saying this is much better for intrusive thoughts. And to be fair, it did help the intrusive thoughts, but she had every sertraline side effect going, and the frustrating thing is because it was private and it was like spaced out reviews. We could have obviously had thrown any money at it and had her reviewed, but the it's too it's too fractured, it's too separate. It isn't someone who can say, right, we'll try this for a week and then phone into CAMS if you've got a problem. You
Yeah.
can't. And the psychiatrist was nervous because she's worked in the NHS, and she was saying things like, if you were in the NHS, I would try things with you that I can't risk trying. So it's
So perhaps now
frustrating,
that you are under
but
CAMS,
we're
you
there
might
now.
have more options. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
it's
it's
a
interesting
nightmare you've had
what's
to wait this long, but
it's interesting about the ADHD. So the ADHD medication sounds like it's an INE ending, because I know I've been recommended, but our therapist has said quetiapine can be at low level a help. So you could say have like a low level of an SSRI for the general anxiety, and a low level of an ENE like quetiapine for the intrusive thoughts. But you know, it
it
can't be
is
done
getting that mix right. I think one of the
remotely.
things that, as I understand it, and from my own experiences, the big danger with any SSRIs is the increased in suicidality and risk
Yeah,
when you
that
first start them. So that's the kind of like that. I think that's why they're not keen on trying lots of different things, because you increase the risk of suicidality. And I think that is linked to depending on the type of presentation you've got, but it's linked to your motivation lifts before the low mood lifts. So you
yes, I know what you're saying.
then have the motivation
The
to do
ability
the
to
things
do
you've
it.
been thinking about. But I think if you're under someone who can properly monitor you and you can be seeing more, yeah, I suppose I'm agreeing with you.
It was the suicidal thoughts for Emma came further down the line. So she was on the sertraline from January to kind of May, but by May she was up to 150 milligrams, and that's when the suicidal thoughts, the intrusive thoughts were suicidal.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to act on them, but they kept coming.
Yeah.
And then when you get so you can't get any joy, she's got this depression feeling of, well, what is the point of anything?
Which is also a risk factor.
I don't want to be here anymore, is what she keeps saying at the moment. what she's not keep saying, but when she has her lows, that's what she says. So she does still talk in a suicidal way.
Yeah.
Because life's rubbish. I mean, life is rubbish after this 2 years. It's
Yeah.
I know when I read, I'm going to watch your I didn't get a chance to watch your Facebook Live yesterday. You were talking about the burnout, weren't you?
Burnout.
It's when you read it on sort of Autistic Girls Network, a 2 to 3 year recovery from burnout, you just think, oh well, you'll just stay in bed and have a nice rest
I
for a
think 2
couple
to
of
3
years.
years is optimistic.
Yeah, I know.
If I'm honest.
It's that what do you do when they can actually function a bit, but they can't function much? It's that kind of constant, oh my God, she's done too much. Now she's back again. It's that
That
it's tough.
tricky bit. That's where we're at with Theo at the moment. Like he's like so much better than he was, and like he's doing well with college, but he's exhausted. But he's exhausted in a tired, overwhelmed way, not in a masking burnout way. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
it's kind of like he needs rest to recover rather than remove everything that's been. Does that make sense? It's kind of like scaffolding.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's been really interesting is it like within the past 3 weeks, he's decided that he wants to go to university, which was not really something he was thinking about. And so we're in that place at the minute where he's saying, oh well, I could live out, or I could live in, or I could do this and I could do the other, and I'm just like over here not to look too panicked, thinking okay, this is great and it could go horribly wrong.
Tough, isn't it? Yeah.
I think 2 to 3 years is really optimistic because of where they are in their educational careers and the things that in the transition they're going to have.
Yeah. The one thing I do know, because I've got an older one who's going into 3rd year of university, and although he's doing really well, and he definitely has a profile of some sort. I mean, he's maths and trains.
Yeah.
And but disabled students allowance sounds incredible in terms of people. I mean, read it so many times. People go along to their assessment thinking, "Oh my God, ready for the battle," and they sit on the other side of the table and go, "Right, how can we help?" And that somebody I've done a bit of messaging backwards and forwards with, whose daughter has got so much in a package. It's incredible.
I cannot wait for that because I also am a bit like, is it not going to be a fight? Other people have told me that is like, you can have that, and that. It's like,
and what about this? And do you need this?
Yeah. I mean, like,
it's like a shopping list.
Absolutely.
So it's a scary time. It's more transition, isn't it? But
and I think you're right to not put too much in for her at this time. What I'm thinking is, what happens if on Monday, this isn't a question me asking you, this is for us to talk about, what happens if on Monday it goes to panel and they come back and go, right, we're going to name that mainstream college. So it's thinking about your plan, isn't it? It's thinking about what that looks like next. So you then get a final plan and you'd be thinking about appealing. That's what you're thinking, yes?
Yes, because we've got to appeal by the end of September.
Okay.
So in terms of, her first final was the end of July. So I need to be on it really with that.
Have you already, remind me, you've already got your mediation certificate, no?
No, because we were away for 2 weeks. I thought I'll speak to you today and I will get on it tomorrow, ASAP. But
okay. What date was your plan finalised?
31st of July.
Right, yeah. So you've got until the end of September to get your mediation certificate. Okay.
You told me how to do that last time. Is it a website do I go to, or
it will
phone?
So on your letter that has the final plan, it will give you the details of the mediation service. It's usually Global Mediation. If you Google them, but have a look at the letter and check that that's what it is. You call them, you say, I've got a final plan and I need a mediation certificate. They'll say to you, are you sure you don't want mediation? You can decide if you do want mediation or not. If you do, then they'll arrange a mediation meeting for you and you can have another conversation about that. I would say that
probably no point. So we've got
if you are going to do that, the only way you're going to get any kind of a different decision is if it's not your caseworker attending the mediation, if they're sending someone more senior who has decision-making powers. But you could ask, you could say, how long does it take to, how long will it take to get a mediation meeting, and who does attend from the LA? And then you'll know. If it's your caseworker, there's no point.
No, she's really lovely, but she can't make
Yeah,
it.
she hasn't got the decision-making powers, has
No,
she?
no.
Then when you've got your mediation certificate, you can lodge an appeal. I was just looking in my diary because I had made a note for myself before I went away to put in an appeal webinar. So I'm going to do that. And I'm just looking for when I can get it in. And it will be included in the marble run and stuff. So I just need to get a date in. I'll ask Jodie to look for me. But from the date of your mediation certificate, you've got a further month to lodge an appeal.
Oh, good, yeah.
So as long as you've got your mediation certificate by the 31st of September, or you've requested it, then you've got until the 31st of October to actually lodge an appeal.
Yeah, I think we spoke last time and said that would be in place, and then it could just run, because we're going to have to wait. There's going to be a time waiting for the appeal. And if perhaps we're lucky and the review in January, February goes well, and we're very happy with what we all agree, and we can cancel the appeal and we'll have the OT input, I hope, for that review.
And the other thing as well, remind me if we talked about this last time, is if they do issue a plan and they name a mainstream, as soon as she's been out of college 15 days, because realistically, she's not going to make it into college, no matter what they put on a piece of paper. As soon as she's been out of college 15 days, you can trigger the letter of complaint for failure to make provision for a child or young person that is out of school. Make sure that you get ahead of the SENCO if this does happen, and you make sure that the SENCO knows that you expect them to record her absences as code-eyed for illness. And then as soon as you've got that, well, you can actually do it at 6 days. You can do it at 15 days or at 6 days if it's obvious that the absence is going to be more than 15 days. Well, it is. So you could actually wait. You could, as soon as she's missed 6 days, you could write to the local authority and say, right, she's missed 6 days. It's going to be more than 15. What are you going to do? And you might be able to find a way round for them to organise alternative provision, perhaps with that provider that you've found, perhaps asking the SENCO to draw down some funding to pay for some of the provision that you've got on your EOTAS plan. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I know it's not ideal, but you do have options.
Yeah. I think that's something we didn't do at the start of year 11. Well, we didn't do that at the end of year 10. We missed that letter of complaint. But to be honest, I think the problem with alternative provision, because I had the list, is that most of them are with a view to getting them back into mainstream. They're kind of like 12 weeks.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be one of their alternative provision providers. Like that's their policy, and they're approved providers. But you could say, look, she can't leave the house, so you're going to have to give us Mind Jam as alternative provision. And if you speak to college, depending on how on it they are, I have other families who have alternative provision packages that look like EOTAS packages. So it's bespoke to the individual child, and they're drawing down funding from the local authority for that young person. The challenge is that the first 6,000 the college will be expected to cover.
Yeah, it's really tough on the college, isn't it?
Yeah, you might get a bit of, but that I think is the thing that you say to the SENCO, look, I am expecting this might happen. So
we don't want
you do this.
We don't want you named, absolutely, and they don't want them named either, because then they get her costs, and they're exceptionally good. She goes to an autism, we've got a local charity, Autism Together, and she goes to a teenage group, and she started to hear them talking about Wirral Met College, and there's one very artistic one who's going there, and one doing animal care, and she's starting to put it together that autistic people do well there, and I do think it's something that maybe would work, but it's not for now, and it would be bad for her and bad for them, and just really annoying in that college.
Yeah, it is really, and and it always, unfortunately, this is what it often comes down to. The local authority are looking at their budget and they're going, okay, we're already in deficit. What do we do to eke it out as near to March as we can, so that any spend we're committing to goes into the next financial year? And
Very
if they
annoying.
name a mainstream and get the mainstream to fund the alternative provision, potentially they won't have to pay anything until the next financial year.
So that suggestion you put up on the screen, I'll go back through the recording as well, is to go back to the college and get them to state clearly that they can't meet need.
Setting is unsuitable.
That's in everybody's interest, isn't it?
At 100%. And then you then also have a bit of a line of complaint there. So although you are appealing on content for the EHCP, you can go back and you can complain on them not following SEND Code of Practice because the setting have stated they can't meet need.
Yeah,
They've used legal reasoning why they can't meet need, and they shouldn't be naming a setting. So you have then two lines of attack, if that makes sense.
It does. No, it does. That's very helpful. I think that's sort of that, and the mediation certificate are the sort of immediate jobs, and then see what happens on Monday, and what they offer her, if anything.
It's so frustrating. Have you connected with other families in your area that have the OTAS?
No, not really. No.
Okay.
No. It's I do have a friend who has worked for the home education service kind of as a tutor. She's an old school friend of mine. She now works as learning support in the residential school I mentioned. So she's got a lot of experience, and she does know people who are in that situation. But I think one of our best sort of social for Emma, the Autism Together groups are extremely good. She needs to be with other autistic teenagers and start to see herself as a perfectly fine person, and she's obviously feels she's got a lot of very bad self-esteem issues from being undiagnosed autistic in those teenage years and those preteen, up until she was very fortunate. She went to a private primary school, quite small. They all knew each other. I think her primary experience is nice, and I thank God for that, really. It was just those 4 years in secondary school that if I could turn back the clock. But
so
you can't.
similar to us, so similar. Theo went to, it wasn't a private school, but it was a small village school. There were only 60 kids in the whole school.
Are you in Wakefield?
I am now.
Yeah, right.
At the time, go on.
I went to Leeds University and my husband went to Bradford, and we settled in Renthorpe for 7 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
PRU in Renthorpe for a little while.
All pre-children stuff, in our 20s. So I know Wakefield.
Yeah, we live in Outwood.
Yeah.
We live just around the corner from the demon that is Outwood Grange Academy. Which, I, in my naivety, rented near the school so we could get him in there because it had incredible Ofsted ratings, and I was sold on the idea that it would be the right thing for him. But he went from being in this tiny little village school where everyone knew everyone else. They were in merged year groups as well, which obviously, well, not obviously, but I know now what that meant was the differences in socialization weren't showing up because he was mixed with reception years when he was in year 3, and nobody really picked up on it. Didn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter anyway, but it didn't matter. But then when, in hindsight, wonderful thing, innit? But the signs that it was going wrong were there very early on. I just didn't know what I was looking for.
No, it is. I totally understand that. Well, I'd say year 7, she dropped every extra curricular thing she did to concentrate on being quiet at home. Yeah. But then year 8, we had the pandemic. So I think had we not had that, we would have probably started to really see it in year 8. We started to see it, but it kind of kicked it along because she got to be at home more in the pandemic. But then the transitions of going back was just horrendous, and then got all through that, and then her brother, who she's really close to, went to university, so another massive transition, and that was it. That finished her off.
I think one of the things that really pushed things for Theo was his grandparents died quite close to one another, within about 18 months of each other. But his grandmother on his dad's side, who he was very close to, who was basically his regulation partner. So whenever he walked home from school, he would ring his nan, and that was how he got home from school, being on the phone to his nan. And like at the time when he started having difficulties, they just kept saying, oh, it's because he's grieving. But actually, I think it was because he lost that scaffolding.
Yeah.
That
and loss is a big part of the trauma. particularly for I didn't understand trauma and PTSD for autistic people can come from very different sources,
Oh,
and
yeah.
definitely loss is one of them. And Emma's loss of her brother was big. And, you know, he was her regulation partner at home, definitely.
Yeah.
But it is life, and he should go and do his university stuff. And but
the thing is as well is that if you had known that before, you might have
yes.
been able to support her differently. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
it
but
is
you
that
don't know what you don't know.
no, it's that undiagnosed autistic thing that we had no idea. And the irony is I volunteered years ago when she was about 8. So I worked for 2.5 years as a volunteer with a little group for autistic children who are about 2 or on the pathway 3, totally unaware of what was at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just what it is. I know you can beat yourself. It is easy to beat yourself up about what you didn't know, but you know, she's we have the 11 plus in our area, so we have a boys' grammar and a girls' grammar, and it's just the way they are. My children just really academic, and she got such a high score in her 11 plus. There's just no other place that you would send a girl with that score.
No.
You wouldn't send her to the non 11 plus comp because she'd be a fish out of water there as well. So, and we didn't, but had we known, I genuinely don't know where I'd have sent her.
This is the thing, though. We sometimes say this, don't we? If we'd known, then we would have done things differently. Except there aren't any settings for children like that.
No, that lovely one that comes up on the documentaries. Have you seen that Limpsfield Grange? That's where we would have sent her, but we don't live anywhere near that.
Yeah. The one school in the UK.
The one school in the UK. Yeah, that's what we need for all these clever autistic, or not clever necessarily, but not learning disabled.
Yeah.
They're disabled in many ways, but you know, average intellect, no learning disability needs. Yeah. Anyway,
I think I think I've spoken about before. I think the only reason I kind of managed okay at school was because I did go to a private secondary and it was small, and like I hated it, but it
survived
my needs academically and socially. I could get away with it because I was a day pupil. I was only one of 3 day pupils in my year, so feeling different was kind of put down to that, and probably worked in my favor. You know,
the pressures were different as well. I mean, when you know, pre-national curriculum and all of that, the pressures in the schools were different. I've got a university friend who's an ed psych. She will only work with freelance. She works freelance with tiny ones, with 2 to 3 year olds, because she can't. She said they're the only people I stand a chance of helping based on the system. She's got an 11-year-old autistic son who goes to a school for moderate learning difficulties as well, and she's so frustrated. And he's got that kind of 17 grand paid for thing, so you'd think that's great, and actually it's not. This is the worst of it. She said, I didn't attend his EHCP review. Her husband went. She said, because I can't sit there and listen to the shit they talk.
And that's an EP. Oh my God.
That's an ed psych. She's great. She said, I just sit there and think, I can't listen to you talk such nonsense. And she's like, they'll set themselves targets like has access to the full curriculum. She said, well, they're going to meet that one, aren't they? You know, that's no difficult. Oh, she's funny to listen to, but sad as well, because you think, well, if a person with a boy who theoretically they've known since he was 4, he's autistic, he's got a great package, and she's really unhappy with it.
She's not happy. God, yeah. So, no, we've got such a lot of work to do, and I kind of think we have to remind ourselves of that. You know, like we are really swimming against the tide.
Yes, absolutely.
We have to really just remind ourselves that given the circumstances, we are doing really well. You know, kids make it through with, you know, some sense of identity, some sanity, and a qualification.
Absolutely.
We should be able to hope for more, though, shouldn't we?
Well, we should, but I try to remind myself that not only is she finally in front of cams, they haven't kicked her out. I've got her in there, and I've kept her in there to a psychiatrist, which apparently is like gold dust. And I've got her in EHCP, which I know a lot of people can't manage. So yeah, that you've just got to tick off what you've managed to do and be pat yourself on the back,
Yeah,
haven't
you
you?
do.
Because a
And
lot,
just
and it's quite distressing. You must find it with your, because what your work you do, when you read people's distress about how they're struggling with so many things that they're struggling with, that they can't get what they need. It's
it's
tough
awful.
to read.
It's absolutely awful.
Mm.
The other thing I was going to say to you was, before we wrap up, sorry, did you want to ask me anything else about the appeal?
No, I'm pretty clear on what my important things to do now are.
Okay, yeah, brilliant. You would have the option. How good is your existing plan? How good is section F of your plan? What's it got in it?
In terms of how
Provision, sorry,
the
the provision that's laid out in section F, has it got anything beyond things like small class sizes? Has it got any interventions?
No, it's pretty general, I would say.
Okay, all right.
You know, things like people who have to be trained in have trained staff, I suppose.
Right. So it doesn't have any, you don't have any therapy in there at the minute, do you? Because you're waiting for your OT assessment.
No, there's no therapy specified. And I'm hoping that CAMS will also put some in. I will ask CAMS to write a report on her when she's been in there a little bit longer. So probably that'll come in with the review as well, what CAMS' opinion is for mental health.
I'm just thinking about you for the next, where are we at? 4 or 5 months, whilst you're working between where we are now and where you're going to be come January, and what your options might be. And if your section F was specified and had things like ooh, I've had a thought, had things like, you know, your mind gem and what have you in there, you could say, okay, I'm not electively, but I am gonna deregister electively home ed and request a personal budget for that provision, whilst you were waiting for the review and or the appeal. What might be worth doing, just as a see if you can, is to, if on Monday they come back and say, yeah, unfortunately, we're going to name the mainstream, I would be minded to say to the caseworker, okay, well, then I know what will happen. We'll go to the mainstream and they're going to have to put in some alternative provision. Can you specify some of that now in section F? Because if they then specified that she needs mind jam and she needs some English, therapist, whatever it looks like, then on paper, she has to have it. And as soon as she's missed her 6 days, the local authority have to provide it.
Right. So
that could be a little bit of a backdoor around the back way, kind of. They are not under any obligation to include it in section F if you're not still in review, but it might be worth an ask. But on the but package it to the LA as, when we get to this school, I know I'm going to need some alternative provision. Can you put some of these things that I've requested in my personal budget into section F so that they know what is expected of them when we get there?
Right. Yes. I get that. Yeah.
They will more than likely say, no, we can't do that, but it's worth an ask.
Yes. Yeah.
Will you let me know how it goes?
Yeah, no, I will. Yeah.
Please
I'll email you. Yeah.
Because I'll be thinking about
it. Thank you. Yeah. It's definitely feels, I mean, she's got no decision-making powers, but she's got 2 autistic sons, and one of them, they're both adults, I think, now, but she's had 5, this is our caseworker, she's had 5 years of CAMS mental health stuff with him, so she really gets it. And it sounds even like even if she's not able to make it happen, she is totally on my side, our side, and understands it, which is quite a relief compared to what you normally get.
100%. When they did the panel decision last time, did you get a copy of the notes, of the panel notes?
No, I haven't seen that. No, just an email from her. So
ask for it. Ask for the panel decision notes. And have you already got a copy of their terms of reference, the panel's terms of reference?
No.
So basically what that is that's the document that says who sits on the panel, how often they meet, what happens if they need to make decisions outside of panel. Because and I don't want to be like defeatist, I'm really hopeful that you'll get what you're asking for. It makes sense, and it
does.
what you're entitled to, and it should go that way. And if it doesn't, like, I'm just thinking to the next step. If you have a copy of their panel notes and their decision notes and a copy of their terms of reference, you'll know what the way round it is for, in terms of, if they're saying to your panel aren't meeting, they can do things like have extraordinary meetings in special circumstances. But so ask for the panel terms of reference. This is your making panel's terms of reference, and ask for a copy of the panel note decisions from last time round.
Yeah, I will do that. See what happens.
Then you've got it in your paperwork as well.
Yeah. The extensive paperwork.
Are you onto a second lever arch file yet?
Oh, it's just a mess. You can't see it. It needs sorting. It's in piles.
I've got a big cardboard box like this, like, you know, like one of those file boxes. I've got 2 of those with all of Theo's EHCP paperwork in it, and I just can't quite bring myself to get rid of it until I know. I'm really looking forward to it. We've got a review coming up, and this will, in theory, be a review that says we're ceasing his plan because of his age. So, because he's like, well, not his age, actually, his qualification level. He's in 2nd year of A-level equivalent now.
Yes, once you get your level 3, then
that's it. So level 3 it won't apply anymore. And I'm kind of just thinking, oh, I cannot wait to be having like DSA conversations instead of EHCP.
They sound a lot easier. They really do. And university doesn't. There is a lot of support at university, and I think if you go to the right one and you get involved in the right groups when you're there, it can be really, really good.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm excited for him. It's
What does he want to study? Does he know?
So he wants to do, he's doing animal management currently, and he wants to do an animal management with zoology.
Yeah.
So he wants to work in zoos. He wants to be a zookeeper.
Fabulous.
And he currently, he volunteers 1 day a week in a zoo not far from us. He's just started working as an education support assistant at the animal park where he is at college, so, which he's loving. So yeah, he wants to work with, probably with reptiles or with red pandas.
That sounds nice.
He started his work experience this week at Flamingo Land, which is, well, do you know Flamingo Land? It's
yeah, I do. Yeah, I know Yorkshire fairly well.
Yeah, so he started there this week, and he really likes it. He was on the penguins this week, so but yeah, he wants to do that. And he was thinking for a while that he might not do a degree, that he might just go straight into work, because he's got quite a lot of work experience. But I think actually, me being away last week, he's kind of got a bit of a feel for it might be quite nice to live on my own. So I think he's thinking that he might use university as a bit of a catalyst for that and go and live in halls, which is amazing considering where he was 3 years ago. So
it's very encouraging to me. I don't know. I know when we dropped Jonathan off first year, Emma said, I couldn't do this. Now, she was only year 10, so I said, yes, because you're only year 10. You wouldn't have been able to do this in year 10. But the one thing about our local college, which if she was to do a level 3 art and design there, they have a degree course that's validated by the University of Chester in illustration and animation. And they only have 12 students on it, and the tutors are lovely. So there is a potential at that college, if she wanted to stay on and live at home.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. It's a ways off yet, but
it's so hard to know what's going to happen, isn't it? So hard to know.
But it is encouraging when you hear the stories of people who have come through, because it's a tough thing to come through.
It is a really tough thing to come through, and I wish it was different for them. Like, it's not okay that they have to even experience it.
No.
So if anything crops up before Monday, feel free to message me. If you want to Facebook message me, I do get emails. Jodie checks all my emails for me, but usually the quickest way to get a response from me is to Facebook message me.
Okay.
So if anything crops up and you're like, I need to check something, just pop me a message. I don't mind.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I will get busy on this. Back into real life this week. It was just too nice last week not to do any of this stuff.
You need a rest sometimes. That's okay.
You do, definitely.
Yeah, well, keep me posted. Let me know how Monday goes.
I will let you know.
Thinking about
Thank you. Thanks very
Okay.
much for your help.
All right, I'll speak to you soon, Karen.
All right, thanks,
Take
Heidi.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.